Hello everyone. For today's video, I thought I would fulfill a request, and that request was to list 50 of my favorite things. Now, I don't know that I can make it through 50 of my favorite things, but I've listed a few here that I'll talk about. So I've broken them down into 3 categories. The first is food. The second is my favorite sounds. And then the third is my favorite movie moments. So these are not necessarily in any particular order of favorites, although there are a few that I will probably say is my absolute favorite. And when it comes to food, my absolute favorite would definitely be lamb vindaloo. Specifically, very, very hot and spicy lamb vindaloo. Whenever I go and eat at an Indian restaurant, that's pretty much what I order. And I can tell how good an Indian restaurant it is by the quality of their lamb vindaloo. The lamb should be tender and flavorful, and the potatoes should be soft but not mushy, and the sauce should be creamy but very spicy and hot. And I love when you're into eating the dish and you can feel the heat in your mouth and on your lips, and you start to sweat, and it fills up your whole mouth with heat. And the only way to kind of damp down the heat is to eat some more of it. And there's something about the heat of the spice and the taste of the lamb that is just amazing. And if they get the mixture right, it's like perfect. And then after you're done eating it, your mouth just burns for minutes afterwards. And it's an amazing feeling. I like Indian spices because the heat of them tends to be in like the back of your mouth and into your throat, instead of like Mexican spices, which tend to be more in the front of your mouth. And Indian spices tend to build up slowly over time. So it's not like instantly hot the minute you put it in your mouth. You could get 3 or 4 bites into it before it really starts to build and kick in. And I like that slow build up of the heat. Another thing that I like is buffalo wings. And since I like hot lamb vindaloo, it'd be no surprise that I also like my buffalo wings to be very, very hot and spicy. But flavorful. For me, hot just by itself isn't good enough. I want it to be hot, but also have a really good flavor to it. So getting that mixture of spices right is important. And so a good hot buffalo wing would be tangy with vinegar, and then hot with the spice. I think really good buffalo wing is done by Hooters, and I think it's 3 Mile Island or something like that. It's been a while since I've had it. And there's some that I've had that are just so hot that you can't even really taste anything after like your second bite. It's almost like a floodlight being shined into your eyes. It's just so much that it overwhelms everything. And I don't like that type of heat. I one time ate some buffalo wings that were part of a contest, and I just wanted to try them out. And they had a really interesting, like, almost cinnamony, chocolatey flavor. But then they were so hot that I couldn't enjoy the flavor. So it kind of missed the whole point of it. So, but a good hot spicy buffalo wing is definitely very good. The next thing I like, as far as if I have to include a junk food, it would be White Castle hamburgers. When I was small, I grew up in that area of the country that had White Castles. And I think probably part of it is just memories of my childhood, but also the flavor of them. And so right now I live in an area of the country which doesn't have those restaurants, but you can buy them frozen. So ever so often I will go to the store and buy a pack and heat them up, and it's okay, but it's not the same. So when we go back to visit some of my family, we will always make sure we go by White Castles and get some fresh hamburgers right off the grill, and those are always amazing. The next food I enjoy is a dish that my wife makes, and I don't necessarily know what the name of it is, but it is an absolutely amazing stew that she creates, usually around Thanksgiving time. And it includes venison, and it includes bacon, and it includes carrots and potatoes and apples, and the combination of those flavors, the crispness of the apples flavor and the taste of the deer meat with the bacon, it is very rich and very complex, and it's just an amazing mixture of the flavors, and you have to be careful because you can kind of burn yourself out on it. So it's something that you eat in small portions. You can't like get a huge heaping bowl of it. And we usually have it with nice sourdough bread, or either that or cornbread. And either one of those is really, really good. And I wish I knew the name of it, but I don't. But it's amazing. And then the next thing, the last food that I enjoy, and this is certainly not the end of the list, there's tons of foods that I enjoy, but these are the ones that came kind of to the top of my head. It would be salmon. Cooked in many different ways, but a nice salmon steak. I almost prefer that over a beef steak or a T-bone or something like that, although those are very good too. But if I had to choose, I'd probably choose a nice, beautifully cooked cut of salmon. So luckily I just ate, or talking about all this food, it made me really hungry. So those are good foods that I really enjoy. The next thing I thought I would talk about is my favorite sounds. And one of my favorite sounds is to hear trains in the distance. On a quiet night with like the window open in the summer or in the spring, and not too close, but just way off in the distance, you can hear the sound of the train as it approaches a crossing, and it blows its horn, and it sounds so mournful and sad and wistful. And sometimes you can even hear the clicking of the tracks or the wheels on the track in the distance. And I always like that. There are lots of trains where we live, so I'm always hearing trains up close, sometimes too close. But I always like the sound in the distance and hearing it come over the horizon. Another sound I like is the sound that you get when you strike a match. In that first second when the match head catches, and you get like this sizzling, sparkling sound as the flame consumes the fuel of the match head. And I always like that. It's like a sudden whoosh and then a long tapered burn. And I almost like the sound as much as I like the visuals of the flames leaping up around the tip of the match. Let's see. The other sound would be thunder. Either in the distance or relatively close. I love the deep, booming sound of the rolls of thunder as they build to a crescendo and then slowly echo away into the distance. And sometimes you can hear it bounce back. You can hear a repercussive echo of it. And I just like feeling it in my bones and in my body as it booms, and you never quite know how loud it's going to get. And sometimes it builds and builds and gets louder and bigger and fuller and then slowly fades away. So that's a very nice sound. Another sound I like is the sound of an old-fashioned suitcase latch being undone. And you slide the catch back, and that little metal clasp that's spring-loaded bounces up and away from the lock and makes a particularly pleasant springing sound as it hits the edge of the suitcase and kind of, I guess, bounces back and forth very quickly there. I think it has a lot to do with the spring action as well as the resonance of the suitcase itself. It probably takes a very small sound and amplifies it quite a bit. I used to have that sound on my Mac as a system sound, that every time I closed a window, I think it would make that sound. And that was kind of cool. I enjoyed that. The other sound I like is the sound of a waterfall. And not just a little one, but a big, huge one. As the cataracts of water come over the edge. It's just an overwhelming white noise. And usually it's accompanied by the coolness of the air as all of that water cools off the air around the pool that it's splashing into. And I just like to sit there and close my eyes and just let the sound of the waterfall wipe out every other noise around it. And it's very peaceful. And it's so big and so loud that it's not overpowering, but it's definitely very powerful. So those would be some sounds that came to mind as I was thinking about some of my favorite sounds. So my last list is some of my favorite movie moments. I figured instead of just listing my favorite movies, I would talk about the favorite places in movies that come to mind. And I was going to try to only list 5, but I kind of got carried away. So I think there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 of them here. The first one at the top of my list, and I think I just recently wrote about this in Facebook, is at the end of the movie Serenity, when the crew of the Serenity are trapped, and the Reavers are coming after them, and they're down to one last room that they're in. And River jumps through the door as it closes into the mess of Reavers. And you don't know what is going to happen. And they basically assume that she is dead. And they start to try to make plans for what their next move is going to be. And of course, most of them are wounded or near death. And everything looks very desperate. And the big doors open at the end of the hallway. And River is standing there, this little slip of a girl. And she has completely decimated an entire room of crazed barbarians. And she's just standing there with 2 weapons in her hand, and there's a light shining behind her. And it's just one of those awesome moments of Frisian for me. The first time I saw that, it was just very well shot, perfectly timed. It's a great movie moment for sure. Another one is in the movie Blade Runner, when he is interviewing one of the replicants, the girl, I can't remember her name, and he's doing it in that big room where the shades come down and almost block out all the light. And there's this beautiful, wonderful golden glow that suffuses the entire scene. And the pace of that whole scene is very slow and methodical. Almost like a dream. And the pace of the music that Vangelis writes fits it perfectly. And I always thought that was a wonderful moment in that movie that is beautiful the whole way through. But it is somewhat of an action movie. And for this one moment in the movie, everything just slows down. And the shot of the owl that's on its perch, and it turns toward the light, and the light catches in its eyes. And it's just absolutely beautiful. The what's going on in the scene is fairly mundane, but Ridley Scott more than makes up for it in the beauty of the moment. The next movie moment would be at the end of Devil's Advocate, when Keanu Reeves' character and I believe it's Al Pacino, who plays Satan, who is tempting Keanu Reeves' character. And he delivers a monologue which is just absolutely spectacular on good and evil. And it is amazingly written and showcase the fact that movies can be more than just explosions and cute things or, pathos, but it can also be deep and moving and poignant and instructive. So that is a amazing moment at the end of that movie. The other would be the ending of Titus, which is a retelling of a Shakespeare play. And Anthony Hopkins plays the lead character of Titus. And it is a Shakespeare tragedy, so it is very sad. But in the end, when Titus is brought low and he has lost almost everything in his life, he delivers another speech that is just heart-rendingly sad. And you see him there at the end of his rope, at the end of everything that he ever held dear is gone. And the way that Shakespeare phrases it and the way that Anthony Hopkins delivers it is just astounding. Again, very sad, but very moving and very beautiful. Another would be from the movie Mulholland Drive by David Lynch. A decidedly weird movie, but I really like it. But there is a moment when the two women enter into a theater, and they're sitting side by side, and they listen to a woman who is singing Roy Orbison's Crying, and her voice is absolutely gorgeous. And that whole moment of them listening to her singing, and then I believe she's singing it in Spanish or Portuguese or something. I can't remember what language she sings it in. So you're not necessarily focusing on the words, you're focusing on the music and the soaring way in which she sings it. And it's at that moment that they discover the blue box that she has in her purse. And it's kind of a turning point in the movie. Again, a very strange movie. But in some way that is a very moving section of it. Which has reminded me of another section of that same movie where the two men are in the diner and one of them is talking about the dream he had in which he died. And the dream is basically the exact same situation they are in now, sitting in the diner. And that is one of the probably scariest moments of any movie I've ever seen, even though there is no gore, there's no blood. It is all psychological. But it is an amazing scene in which this man slowly convinces himself that he is about to die. It is a masterful piece of movie making. Let's see. Another movie moment would be from The Fountain. And this is basically a movie that is full of beautiful moments. It's hard for me to pick out one that stands out above the rest. This movie is like a painting. And every scene is gorgeous and detailed and rich. And that movie pretty much stands at the top of my list of best movies especially from a visual sense. Absolutely gorgeous. So the whole movie is an amazing movie moment. Another would be from the movie Dogma. And that is a moment in which the two angels are fighting with each other. And I believe it's Michael who is saying and complaining and yelling about humans and how much they have and don't even realize it. And that is another excellent speech that cuts to the heart of the human condition. And as much kind of grossness and profanity, which is kind of the hallmark of Kevin Smith, and I like his movies almost because of that. There's this one moment in the middle of it. It's just like cuts to the heart of the matter of how oblivious we can be as humans to what we have. And the final one would be in a movie called Until the End of the World. And this is a very long movie. You have to stick with it. And it's almost kind of like two movies put together. But it culminates in a wonderful ending of... I'm trying to explain this movie. It ends up basically that a device that this scientist has made has the ability to record people's dreams and play them back. And the scientist and all of his family are gathered in Australia because there is the threat of a nuclear satellite crashing to Earth and wiping out large areas of the population. So they're all gathered in his laboratory compound. So it's like a place they can stay and live. I think it's in a cave. And they begin to record their dreams and watch them. And slowly, one by one, each one of these people is succumbed by the beauty of their own dreams. And they stop being productive. And they stop really taking care of themselves or taking care of the place around them. And the only person who doesn't is the writer. And he's writing this book. And he's got this typewriter that he's carried halfway around the world. And while everyone else is kind of absorbed into themselves, he is writing furiously. And he comes to kind of an existential crisis himself of what to do. And he ends up fighting for the first time kind of in the movie, where he's been so absorbed in his book and never getting involved that he decides to fight and bring the woman he loves out of this and all of the others. And it just grabbed me. I still remember it. I watched it many, many years ago, and it still comes back to me. So that pretty much concludes the things that I have written down that I like. And speaking of trains, it sounds like one is coming. I can hear it coming down the track, getting closer. So what was once a mournful sound in the distance, I think is going to become a very close sound soon enough. So I will sign off here. Thank you for listening. And please subscribe to my channel. And I hope you enjoyed this self-reflecting video. Thank you.